Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here from Los Angeles, California, United States of America, April 12, 2021. This is the 12th talk in a series based on my new book, Extinction, X-rated. It's an auto-fictional, dark satire, my humble exploration of good and evil. Today's sharing, first of all, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here. I'm a little bit sensitive today, a little bit vulnerable. The talk, the ephemerality of life, and reflections on impermanence, on death, and the Buddhist concept of anatta. There's so many different words to point to this intrinsic non-centrality, often referred to as non-self, that there isn't an unchanging, permanent, subjective identity to the infinitely ephemeral world that we are embedded in. It's the opposite of soul, but it also includes, in my humble understanding, the concept of soul, but not as permanent. And so I refer to it here, for lack of better terms, on this morning, the emptiness of self. I have no sweet words to talk about it today. It's all very sensitive, reflecting on my mom and dad who passed away. Maybe you're reflecting on people in your life who have died, who have passed on, who are in transition today or soon. To state the obvious, we're all in transition. One of the things I learned from the Reverend Sayadaws in Burma was the ever important, triumphant, to keep active in one's heart, the practice of Dhamma, the reflection on the immediacy and the uncertainty, but yet the certainty of mortality and death, always keeping death always available. And to keep a smile on your face, keep the humor, the satire, the comedy, the cuteness, the irreverence, the spontaneity, the intimacy, as active as courage will allow us to confront the machinations of this strange tapestry that we find ourselves in, called life. I don't know about you, but I, from a young age, have never been comfortable with my recognition of life. Yes, when I'm enthralled in those rare moments as a young sports fan, and the hope of hitting a home run in Little League and Pony League and Coat League in high school, catching a touchdown pass, making love with your girlfriend, the occasional great movie and book, and the incredibly impassioned love for me, of music and Motown and rock music, and the emergence of the Cream and Led Zeppelin, and the whole psychedelic infusion with Hendrix, and my deep exploration of consciousness, not deep, but just my exploration of consciousness as a fascination, but it wore off. Today, at this stage of my life, let me back up a little bit, and I'll explain the context. A couple of years ago, I was blessed to be taken on a personal tour. I'd been out there before, but a place called Slangthaya and nearby a couple of townships adjacent to Hlangthea, which is, those of you who know, on the outskirts of Rangoon. And it's often considered the more or the most impoverished, I hate to use that word, the impoverished, because they're not impoverished in spirit, in Dhamma, in soul, but the most poor, lacking resources in sanitation, hygiene, fresh water, food. For those of you who've been out there and those of you who haven't, allow me just to... I, unlike a lot of people traveling, always have wanted to go to the unseen places, off the so-called beaten track. There's just some kind of natural familiarity with me to belong more to the unrecognized, often the voiceless people of the world. I don't say that with pride, but just simply as a predilection on reflecting today on the ephemerality of life. There's something about the moral courage of being in an area that's so lacking the normal resources of comfort, electricity. I mean, several 100,000 people living in an area where it's just one of those classic scenes where you see lots of children with the reddish hair and eyes sunk in like dark caverns and their stomachs extended to varying degrees from malnutrition, in some cases starvation. Hygiene is just not even seemingly possible. Police don't even go into the area a lot of the time. And the smell and the stench of fecal matter and urine and excrement from animals is really quite overwhelming. But once you pass that threshold, at least for me, and you adjust, all the while knowing that you can return to your, in my case, my 3-star hotel, which in Burma is an amazing event, and to eat my mohinga and to have my glass of wine at night with my Burmese friends. I mean, you always have that card to play. Departure. So when I reflect upon ephemerality and emptiness and death and Dhamma, they're just different forms of perception of our backyard, our jail cell, our prison camp. I remember reading way back in Sri Lanka when I was a monk, how one monk saw that they were a prisoner of consciousness, born into this frame of mind and body. And once identity is mindfully reflected upon and one sees that one is incessantly engaged, whether one wants to or not, with the phenomenology of the senses. And even when we're asleep in the dream world and deeper than dream, we're in subconscious states and we wake back up and we carry our memories, our conditions, our habits, our proclivities, our tendencies. And no matter what you do, no matter how ardent one meditates, as you know very well from your own experience, at least in my experience, how hard it is, how challenging it is to so-called control consciousness. And even so, I mean, I so often quote, this, I don't know that it's accurate, a favorite passage of mine from the Bible of Jesus talking about how easy it is to love those who love you. And he goes on to say, even the tax collectors can do as such, And I remember being in a monastery for my brief time there, several years, and how easy it is to meditate in the good company of nuns and monks and lay people being adorned with food and robes and medicines, and a meditation hall and a cushion and a bed and a mosquito net and a great Kalyanamitta teacher, and how hard it is, even in that context of the sacred, the challenging nature of inhabiting beingness, inhabiting consciousness. I just took the romance out of it for me. It's just so difficult. And at any moment, you get the malaria mosquito, the dengue mosquito, you get chronic dysentery, you can have cholera, you can have typhoid, You can have a tumor, you could have cancer. One of my best friends, he was an inoperable brain tumor. And we were put next to each other in meditation, and I would so often hear him. Just hear him cry. Just hear him cry. And I remember reflecting that how many cries I don't hear, how many times I've cried that others don't hear, how many times there'll be tears and weeping that no one hears. And then there's the occasional ally. And I remember watching Seda U Pandita so often walk over to him and humbly touch my friend, a monk, on his back or knee and just assure him through that act of human warmth that I bear witness with you, I am here with you, I feel with you. You're not alone. You're in the sanctity of Dhamma. Stay with it. Be present. Feel. Notice. Know. And very beautiful and touching and poignant being again out in Plankthea. And me as the kind of semi-tall outsider that can speak a little bit of Burmese, and there I was in my longi and taking my photographs and talking with the children, and there's so many children out there. And I was told by my translator and friend that many of these children don't know their birth date, they've never been to school, they've never read a book. Some of them don't even know whom their mother and father is. They're often cared for, like these boys and girls here, these 20 and 30. They're cared for by other friends and cousins and siblings that are just a few years older than them. And these are 6, 7, 8-year-olds, and the 9, 10, and 11-year-olds will take care of them. See, they're holding hands, and their parents are on the buses going into the city, if they're lucky, to get these long jobs, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-hour jobs, which I've gone to in Yangon back in the day when the 4- and 5-star condominiums were being built. And these big, huge tea cranes, you'd stand at the top of one of the larger hotels and look across the cityscape. Those of you who live in Burma and Rangoon know, and you'll see these multiple tea cranes all from Hong Kong and Singapore and Vietnam, and owned by the military in Naypyidaw, and these big enterprises building, and you get closer to them. I've walked into them, and hundreds of boys and girls just laboring away, carrying brick and rod and wood and cement, and just not filthy, but just covered in that fine powdered cement that makes breathing almost impossible. And you can so easily project into their lungs, into their bodies, into their biologies, the degradation based upon these chemicals and these substances to build these big billboards. If you've seen it in Rangoon, these big billboards, multiply that all over the world, the big billboards, and you see these beautiful boys and girls in these fictitious suites and condominiums, and you see the prices ranging from, 550,000 US up to 5 million, and in a country where the average income is what, $100 a month, and it's like the economic, the monetary, the privilege profiting tsunami, the monsoon, the hurricane of money and power and wealth. And I go out to Hlanthea, and all these boys and girls, I'm told, their parents will come back to Hlanthea and live. Look at this thatched hut that has 7 to 9 to 10 people in it without a blanket. And I'm beginning to I don't even know why one cries, except the Dalai Lama was said to have said that when you cry, it's the emergence of compassion. It may not be full compassion where you feel compelled to do something, to provide blankets, to provide food, to provide health, to provide hygiene, to provide money, on and on and on. Look at the boys and girls all over the world right now who have decided to live in conscience and go to prison to be tortured to help support the radiance of freedom and democracy. Compelled are we to reflect upon ephemerality, death, emptiness. And just like that, look at all the generations before us, just like that. Look at our own lives, just like that. Any second, Alan, reflect over and over again that death can come at any second. You can be called in to an emergency room. In seconds, you have a test that results that you're in an urgent, critical condition where you need to be looked at immediately. And you go down the rabbit hole of more tests. And the next thing you know, life is just engulfed in science and tests and will I and how long and the parabola and the physics and the mathematics of predictions and percentages. If I do this or if I don't do that, will I, won't I, how long? All bargaining with anicca, bhatta sankara, upadavaya damino. It's all so ephemeral, right? I was reading Mahasi Sayadaw, my preceptor's book last night, the Tuvataka Sutta. And he's encouraging, as the Buddha did in the Tuvataka Sutta, but he's given a talk in 1976 to the people in the Mahasi Thatana Yekta in Rangoon on the necessity, the deep, courageous necessity. Reflect upon your mind and body, O yogis, like that of foam, empty of self-reference, conditions beyond your own capacity to control, except to free yourself from fixation on any condition. And I'm reading on, and it's like praise and blame and fear and pleasure and gain and loss, all the dyads known as Lokya, the Lokya Dhammas. How we so desire comfort, desire wealth, desire beauty, and we attach, and we so cringe and try to avoid the unpleasant, which is natural. But I'm in Hlanthea again, and these boys and girls, they're all cheering and shouting and wanting to hold my longi in my hand. And in a weird way, I felt so loved by these children. They weren't looking for chat. They weren't looking for money. They were just enthralled. I was told by my friend that someone who they empowered as this privileged outsider had within him and her to come to visit them. And they had felt this deep primordial jubilation of they weren't alone, like my teacher with my monastic friend with the brain tumor. And he's in pain, and my teacher's just simply touching his back. I hope there's something in this very humble reflection that touches your heart, softens it. It's so easy to be on a mad pace of getting back to normal post-COVID. the roaring 20s, like it was after the Spanish flu, the roaring 22s. For 7 months I sat in this room, in this house, reflecting on death. You never really take into account, do you, that you really have to do, reflect on death. I mean, there's so many people that have been given terminal sentences. How many boys and girls in Burma today that have been shot and killed and tortured? How many, 3,000 or more, are in the prisons in Mandalay and Monua and in Rangoon? And I've only heard the descriptions from friends who've lived there, spent time there, tortured there, interrogated there. Hlangthea times 1,000. No medicines, no blankets, no mosquito nets. Nothing fresh, nothing clean. Denigrated. An incessant attempt to demoralize you by the prison authorities. Where is that helping hand that touches you and holds you, assures you that in the ephemerality, in the moment of death and in emptiness, I left Hlangthea. There was some part of me, I don't know if I can, well, I'll share this in open-heartedness. Take it the way you want, but I felt so demoralized, so excavated of hope. Felt so overwhelming to be there and to see them. And my perception was economic, societal, political entrapment. How easy it would be to walk away from them as other. I mean, I don't know who said it or how it's felt, but the road of empathy and compassion, I feel it as a road of broken glass. The challenge, utter challenge. No wonder people kill each other. How much easier it is to kill, it seems. Just to rid it. Let a bullet do your biting. But to feel each other and to act, it's just mind-boggling to have to feel that. And so this, for me, when I reflect often about impermanence or emptiness, and I don't have the right day, I don't have it today. I don't have the cognitive muscle and the strength. There's a part of me that just feels like there's I don't know about you, a foreboding. Maybe we're all in it in this phase of COVID and the pandemic of propaganda. Who do we believe? And I wish I had a conspiracy theory that give me that kind of cognitive strength. I wish I had my own version of a QAnon, a Dhamma-anon, an Anatta-anon, a psychedelic-anon, whatever, the conviction in my God. But I'm up on that self-appointed cross, and I feel like, Father, why have you forsaken me? I feel this sense of wow, 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 wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow. Remember, as a monk in Lanka, I was encouraged. I think my teacher thought of me as a romantic, a poet. And yet I was living in this forest jungle setting. They were really rad monks there. He said every good monk, especially in their first few years, should frequent the morgue. We must keep in mind, deep in Dhamma heart, the anicca, of all things at all times. Existence is an infinite photonic foam, digital, neurological, cognitive, biological, epistemological castle with infinite rooms without a king and a queen, yet there's this perception of self, observing other than self, in the fiction of that dyad, which in the Buddhist tradition calls anatta, emptiness of self-fixation. There is no permanent phenomena in this mind-body process or in the cognitive infinite paradigm of existence. No permanent God, no permanent soul. Where can you find centrality? And you trace back perception, right? You trace back the psychological threads, the ecosystem of identity, deeper and deeper as a meditator. And all of a sudden you mindfully begin to see that mindfulness and concentration and effort, even insights and thoughts and emotions and conditions and memories, all are as ephemeral as a constellation. You look up at the sky, there is no central to the Taurus in the sky. It's a constellation. This isn't just a fabricated memory of a desired belief system. Coming back to, for me, the road of compassion, the road of emptiness, the road of impermanence, the reflection on death, I don't feel empowered from it, and yet I know it's reality. And all my heart sometimes yearns for is this salvation, if you will, of mutual connectivity. My teacher holding my bhikkhu friend's back with his palm, crying in the anguish of a brain tumor. I feel you, I see you, I am with you in the reflection, in the immediacy, the insight into death. He didn't say you're not going to die. I'm with you in the process of breathing here and now. I'm with you, I'm with you, I'm with you. So my teacher sent me to Colombo and arranged for me to go to a morgue. And the mortician, the doctor, an American bhikkhu, please come. And just the smell and the ambience of the morgue, and where there had been nuns, a bus trip, lay people, the bustling of a city, the sound of music, radio, the blue sky, the clouds, the prediction of my return to my sacred cottage on the sacred island, all in the day of the life of a monk trying to understand Nietzsche, Vatasank. All things are impermanent, all things are empty of self, all things are living and dying in this nanosecond of time, and keep a smile, keep a smile in the face of this young woman who was just hit by a bus. And there she was completely nude. One of the first women that I'd actually had an encounter with as a monk, a dead, beautiful Sinhalese woman. There must have been 23 years old. And she had simply a very deep ding, bear with me on this, a deep ding on the side of her head. And the mortician, the doctor, told me that she was at a bus stop with her child, and for some reason the bus door opened and caught her just on the temple and killed her instantly. The child lived, and of course here she is, dead. And I'm looking at this woman, and there she is. Normally, if she were talking to me in the nightclub of my fantasy, or in the meditation retreat of my hope, or on the city street of any city on any moment of desire in any lifetime in any dimension of existence, there would be an immediate chemistry of whatever based eye, physical, smell contact that arises to give a man and a woman, or a woman and a woman, and a man and a man, or whatever the combination of whatever it is, chemistry, connection, touch, kiss, intimacy, love, eroticism, mutuality, lust, passion, desire, in some cases, children in her case, and family, and relatives, and joy, and festivals, and celebrations, and slowly, through time, aging, illness, randomness, circumstances. Who gets born into Lanthea? Who gets embodied as a young monk like my friend with a brain tumor? And even the best surgeons in Rangoon said, there's no hope. You must ordain and meditate to the best of your ability, young man, as you will die soon. And my teacher reaches out and touches his back, and the tears, and we all cry together. And there she is. And he begins with his scalpel to just slowly, right down the center of her face, her beautiful, gorgeous face. And just, if you've ever seen an autopsy, or just probably online today, and just peeled back her face and revealed that which is beneath the skin. And in an instant, a natural impulse is to contract, which I did. And I heard my teacher in my own mind, if there's contraction, notice the contraction and continue to translate that contraction into the wisdom of mindful release. Release the grasping to form as her face can be taken back from the sinews and the arteries and the skull. We often identify, grasp, attach to forms, perceptions, visual content. We interpret that visual content, often based on unrecognized conditions. We live on the surface of things and we call it normal. Dhamma. Dhamma, reflect on Dhamma, reflect on death, and do it with a smile. And that was, here it is, I don't know, I mean, it was a long time ago. And for some reason today, my heart is tender, it's soft, it's broken, it's crying. There's a type of existential foreboding of what are we in store for, where are we going, what's happening, what will be the outcome of this epic tragedy in Burma. I hear the onslaught of the march of the sixth great mass extinction. I've been reading Michio Kaku's book, A Future for Humanity. Can you hear galactic dimensions 100 light years square colliding in a fusion of instantaneous dissolvement, the deep vaporization of a nuclear holocaust going on times 1,000 to the 10,000th power in the discernible universe. And you go, who in the fuck created, why, what a context? And I'm going like Lanthea, Auschwitz, Myanmar, the White House, sex workers, soldiers, mercenaries, poisons, pathogens, Dr. Anthony Fauci, COVID, SARS-2, 1,000 times the greed virus, 2022, Sir Donald Trump, President Joseph Biden, the CCP, totalitarianism, dictatorship, privilege, power, pornography, DMX, the rad rapper, music, poetry, theater, Broadway, dance, all the convulsions of this existence. Where is your Dhamma? The monks in the monastery would constantly encourage us. Where is your Dhamma? Employ your Dhamma as the vocation of your life, not your desire for wealth and status and woman or man and position. Those are so temporary. They're so anicca. It's all anicca, but those are really anicca. Those are phantasm grooves. And you live in the illusion of things, taking that to be real. And all of a sudden, it's so ephemeral that you get a doctor's appointment, and all of a sudden, that hiccup turned out to be an aneurysm, a tumor, a blood clot. And the next thing you know, like every living thing, anicca vatasana, temporary, gone. Hello, ancestors. I often wonder, do I know someone before my mom and my dad, and before my mom and dad's dad and mom and dad's mom and dad's mom, mom and dad? No. Think of all those billions of relatives that we have in the Homo sapiens species ecosystem of Darwinianism meets the Buddha and Christ in this huge, endless epoch after epoch where the Buddha screams out to nuns and monks, have you not seen enough? Have you not cried enough? Have you not bled enough? You filled the oceans with your tears and blood, having witnessed loved ones killed, died. Have you not seen enough suffering to turn away from all forms of the autopsy, to peel back layers of the samsara? Peel it back, peel it back, peel it back, keep peeling it back, enter it realistically. How many times I have heard and said, so poetically, see the true nature of things. And then when I see it, it's like, oh my God, DMT pixelation. And I am going like, familiarity is lost. And no wonder people outlaw beautiful poetry. No wonder people feel revulsed and turned off by nonviolence and intimacy. No wonder the word erotica has become pornography in so many cases. Look at the history of pornography. It's really about the stimulation of the intimacy and sexuality, and yet for some reason taboo. But the real kind of pornography to me is denial, blame, judgment, the pornography of ethnic cleansing, the pornography of a weapon, the pornography of genocide, the pornography of no one there to touch you at your time of need. I'm back in Langthia, and these boys and girls with red hair and extended stomachs and eyes sunk in like caverns, hungry. And I go, and my friend tells me, here's a place where they sell mice. I said, why? To eat. And rat. And roach. I'm going like, wow, how easy it is to just live in the suburb of predictable continuity, of ease, of privilege, of profit, of the dance of acquiring knowledge to pursue a career. And yet, if you're in Sarajevo, affluent, the next minute you're being shot at because I am a Bosnian Muslim who married a Croatian Catholic, and I am, like all human beings, a mixture of God and Satan and Allah and Buddha and all the infinite variations of biblical metaphors and religious metaphors, just moving through infinity right now. Think of all the different life forms. They say there's something like 4 to 5 billion Earth-like spheres in our discernible galactic view, all of which have various life forms. Some 100 million years more advanced than ours. What would that even look like? I mean, it's so overwhelming. And so I guess what I'll end today with this reflection, just a spontaneous reflection on ephemerality. Impermanence, death, emptiness. So thank you from my heart for listening. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for supporting a type of courage that it's very unfamiliar to me, to feel uncertainty, frailty, vulnerability, openness without answers, that part of me that wants to stay in courageous revolution that projects into the girls and boys on the front lines of civil disobedience and revolution and in prisons, and how they've got black hoods over their heads, kneeling in glass and being screamed at and tortured and raped, and there's no teacher there, there's no Kalyanamita, there's no mother or father or son. Just you in the pitch darkness of your own belief systems and convictions, being satanically massacred by entities controlled by demonic forces inherent in this infinite tapestry, governed by anicca, governed by emptiness of self. How and why? So I guess the theme today for me as I close, feeling overwhelmed, not in a bad way, but I'm taking a big gulp. A sense of foreboding, a sense of uncertainty. And yes, we'll all, or at least I will say, I will make it through this. Yes, yes, yes. Not directionless, but, you know, I feel I remember U Pandita often, I'll close here. As a basic meditative instruction, sometimes when the mind was not able to be under control through right effort and mindfulness, he would encourage us, certainly encouraged me to put my hand on my chest when I'm sitting or standing and just stop and just feel as he did with my friend with the terminal brain tumor. Just feel, bear witness like the Buddha did. The encounter with Mara, touching the earth of one's own infinite Dharma heart, if you will. Bear witness in dignity, in strength, in conviction, in beauty, to the rightness of your own endeavor. That was what he said. Establishing an intimate Dhamma relationship to one's own innate stature and dignity. You have every right in the world to emote from your dignity, right or wrong. We all live in that diabolical relationship with having to transmute things so far beyond our own control. So deep are these proclivities. Bearing dignified cellular Dhamma, existential, dignified reality to one's own rightness, the rightness of one's own being, the rightness of one's own endeavor. And today I must take refuge in my dignity, in the rightness of my Dhamma and my reflection today on impermanence, on death, on emptiness, and learning to touch my own innate Dhamma dignity. That's it. My own innate Dhamma dignity, and trust, a prayer, a trust in these forces of transformation, that the stations of life from tomorrow onward, in this life, in the next life, just as those boys and girls were born and live in Langthea, the girl in Colombo hit by a bus, the 8 billion of us on the planet right now, imagine all the variations on the theme of human behavior, all the animals, all the birds, all the insects, the pulsation of this eco-biological existential system of existence known as samsara. And here you are, and here I am, embedded in this infinite fabric. It is so unthinkable, so unthinkably, for me, overwhelming. And I am so blessed to have encountered the good people of Myanmar. My Dhamma family, the teachers who were blessed and patient enough to take me in as an outsider, the lay people who provided medicines and food and shelter and robes in my times of need, the leaders of the civilian government that I met, the political prisoners who allowed me to ask humble questions and were patient with me to document the evidence of their discoveries in those incredibly challenging conditions. Thank you, thank you, thank you for allowing me to be a part of your Sangha and learn from your life. And may whatever my life is, no matter how long it continues or how short the future may be, may it serve others as people have served me. So to the people of Burma, to my teachers, to my family, to my friends who've passed on, who are in prisons, who are fighting or in hiding, or struggling on the front lines of their own courage to bring democracy and freedom there, I simply say, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you.